I hate fall ball. Let me tell you why.
You cannot feel this energy.
When I hear high school athletes talk about they're starting their fall season, their fall ball competitive season, I get an absolute cringe. And here's why. In Florida, Texas, Alabama, California, in the southern states, I'm here in Florida, we can play year-round, but we should not. We should not be playing year-round. There has to be time where the athlete, especially the 12-year-old, 14-year-old, 16-year-old athlete, can recover from the beating of the summer ball and the spring. Because we start in February, and you go through the end of your season in the postseason, and then take about a week or two off, and then you start the summer. Well, there's 25 games in the spring, and you're going to play at least 25 games in the summer, usually more like 60 games in the summer. That's a massive amount of baseball. And I've talked in other lessons about how our sport's different. We grind joints, hip joints, shoulders, and of course that core stabilizes in between. But we really grind on those soft tissues. So we have to have time to rest and recover those tissues. And they take time to recover. Now, another thing that I don't like about fall ball is it's terrible baseball. It's nothing competitive because there's nothing at the end of the tunnel. There's no culminating event. See, in a high school baseball season, you've got championships. There's post-game and post-playoffs. In summer ball, you're playing in tournaments that you're trying to win, and you're trying to go to better tournaments and getting in front of coaches. Well, fall ball, you don't have any of that. So it's just this lackadaisical program that ends up just being bad baseball. Now that I've trashed fall ball, let me kind of bring it back just a little bit. There are some high schools, typically your more elite level high schools, that do run a solid fall program, but it's not a fall like you would think. It really models a college fall program. One of them here locally, Greg Olson runs, is at Calvary Christian, and they do run a very strong fall program. It's very short, and it's really designed to get guys in, and it's not super competitive, but it's very well organized and very well run. So there are some that do a good job, but for the most part, fall ball for me, that's a time that you need to rest, recover, play other sports, get your grades up, and if you do have a high quality program that's modeled after a college program, then that's okay, I think. What I'm going to do right now is pull a section of a podcast I did with Coach Bryan Henry. Coach Bryan Henry is the head coach at Tallahassee College, which is a junior college program, a very elite junior college program in the North Florida area. And we talked in that podcast, in this little section I'm going to show you, about a good fall program. Now, what I want you to do is I want you to stick around after that, because I'm going to break down the structure of what he and I talked about in that interview, and I'm going to show you some visual aids and really break down the structure of what a good fall program should look like. Now, please make sure that you like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so YouTube will let you know each time we post a video. Right now, let me get you to the interview with Coach Bryan Henry. So in the fall, you're going to have, what's it look like in the fall? I'm a player.
Yep.
You recruited me. I'm a player. I made the team. What's the first thing we do?
So the first thing is I don't claim to be really smart, but I'm organized, and I can thank Coach Shoup for that. We have the fall already mapped out. Your first day here, I will give you a copy of our practice schedule, our game schedule, everything. So you know kind of the hours, what we're going to be on the field. Our first 2 weeks are, and again, it's all modeled basically after a Division I kind of calendar. The first 2 weeks are going to be individual drills, individual groups, small group setting for us to kind of get to know the new guys, the new players, evaluate, see what we got, and also give the pitchers time to get their arms in shape. And then we will go into like our full practice setting, just like a D1, where we'd still do our individual drills, and then we do a team type drill, whether it's cuts and relays or T drill or bunt defense, first and third, and then we scrimmage. If we have arms available, we're going to be playing live, because in baseball, you develop by playing.
Yeah, exactly. So you're going to come in, you're going to go into small group for extended period of time. Then as that progresses, you're going to shrink time. And that becomes your individual drills, kind of pre-practice kind of thing. And then you want to get on the bump and get it going as fast as possible. Let's go ahead and start playing. Because that's how we get better. And that's also how you measure.
That's how you measure. And that's, I mean, that's why there's minor league baseball. You know, those guys are playing every day to develop and get better and hopefully reach the big leagues. The guys that aren't in the big leagues aren't just at a spring training complex doing drive line and hitting off the tee, and no, they're playing. And
you're evaluating, you and Fig and Hage, you guys are evaluating through this whole process. And I'm sure as a guy that's worked with two legendary guys, you're having post-practice meetings and you've got the things you've got charts that aren't posted.
Right.
Every coach has charts that nobody else sees but the three coaches in there, and how they're grading. And you don't have to share any secrets or anything like that, but how somebody's grading out today. Do you keep daily grades? You keep basically daily, weekly?
We do. So from that I took from the Diamondbacks, and to be honest, we don't, numbers wise, we don't hide anything from the guys. Everything's posted.
Okay.
And for me, the pitcher's chart in the fall, I don't even, so I do. I track the ERA and that stuff, but I tell them in the fall we're not tracking that. What we're tracking and charting is first pitch strikes.
Yep.
2 of 3 for strikes. So if I throw 3 pitches, I want to be 0-2, 1-2. 2 of 3.
2 of 3 for strikes.
Yeah, 2 of 3 for strikes. I'm tracking leadoff hitter outs, and then the fastball strike percentage, overall strike percentage. So, you know, the Diamondbacks, they were real big. It was all 60%. You needed to be 60%, you were in the green. And so that stuff would be posted. And if you were in the red, you had a conversation with the pitching coach, manager, hey, we need to work on this. And if you were constantly in the red, then it was a fine. And then obviously if you're in the red for an extended period of time, you're probably not pitching great, and you have the chance of getting sit down or released. So I use that, and I post all the guys every Monday after every pitcher's gone through their week. We'll post it, and you know, the guys that are in the green for everything, majority of the time, are the guys that have the low ERA. And that's what I stress to my pitchers, is to not be result oriented. Don't let yourself look at the ERA. I know baseball's a game of numbers. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the day, that's what you're worried about. Like, man, I got to have a good ERA if South Alabama's going to call me.
Right.
But, you know, if you're pitching to your ERA, then you're going to skip the process. So, you know, if we can worry about the process, which starts with strike one, the first pitch, okay, if I can go 1 for 1 there, now I'm ahead. I get ahead 0-2. Now, okay, boom, now I got them playing defense. So, you know, if we're green all the way across and I get guys locked in on that portion of it, now the results are kind of taking care of themselves.
So those are micro metrics, versus an ERA is more of a macro metric. And you're right, you can get lost in that, because a 4.3 ERA and a 4.1 ERA don't look very different, but they can be extremely different if you look at, well, he's behind in the count, and then he recovers.
Right.
Well, that's not going to last long.
Correct.
That's going to get you.
Yep.
You know, that's going to get you in the season. So you're having these guys focus on these micro numbers, these micro percentages. Now you've got something they can focus on, and something that you can work on in their long pens, in their short boxes, and you can program that into their program. Okay, well, we're behind in the count too much, so we need to change our process. So here's the process. Here's the result. If the result is good, we continue the process.
Correct.
If the result is poor, we go into the process and we know what to change.
Right. Make the adjustment.
Those who adjust win.
That's a lot of information to take in there. There are 3 things related to this fall ball program, though, I want to touch on. He mentioned working in small groups.
getting together in August in that fall program and breaking into your small groups, that's when you're kind of going back to the fundamentals. That's when you're going back to the basic footwork, your glove action, and simple stuff. It's also in that small group environment. It's not particularly fast paced, and it allows you to acclimate back in from the summer, which brings me to my second point. It seemed like every year in college, we had an inordinate amount of pitchers, especially coming back into the fall, carrying injury. And we always made a joke about it. You know, the tendonitis month is August for college baseball. That's tendonitis month. National tendonitis month is August because every pitcher seems like they've got tendonitis or a sore elbow or something like that coming into the fall. And the reason being is during the summer, it's much less structured. So guys aren't doing their SSM, their stability, mobility, strengthening stuff. They're kind of putting that to the wayside. You've got a lot of rainouts, so you got to jam a bunch of games in short periods of time. So you're losing that spring structure. So guys will end up getting dinged up. Arms are really dinged up when they come into August. So we got to give them a little bit of time to get acclimated and get recovered and healthy again. The third thing we talked about in there is the metrics. Now, this drives me bananas watching these fall ball programs in high school, and nobody's charting anything. Nobody's keeping a book. They're just going out playing. Well, that's fine if it's a recreational league, but if you're trying to develop athletes to go to college, we're recording everything. Coaches cannot keep in your head. No coach can keep in their head the stats of who's hot, who's not, when they're hitting, and what they're doing. Not to mention the fact, if I'm not charting, I don't know how to program the workouts. What I mean is this. Pitchers. He mentioned there are several metrics that they look at for pitcher success and pitcher progress. One of them being your strike to ball ratio needs to be 60% or more. Well, you've got to chart that. And if your strike to ball ratio is 30%, I know what I need to do in the bullpen side work program to improve that. If I'm not charting that, I won't know how to program the workouts because one bullpen isn't the same as the next bullpen. The bullpens and the side work and everything are based off the game measurements. So if we're doing real well, we repeat the same process. If there's pitchers that are behind in the count too much and we're getting beat, we change the process. So if you're not measuring in the fall, you can't program the workouts. Therefore, you really are guessing. And if I was a better guesser, I'd have won the lottery by now. I know many of you don't have a great deal of control over the fall programs and over what's going on, but I want to go ahead and share with you the structure of what a collegiate fall program should look like. And fall is when there's a lot more practice and a lot more skill development and measurement in practice through inter squad and other activities. Whereas in the spring, it's much less practice. The spring transitions more into recovery and fixing some game management problems, like if we're not bunting well or guys aren't hitting well in certain situations. There's practices can be changed to support those adjustments, but really in the fall is when you're getting ready for the spring. So these slides I'm going to show you will mirror a good college fall program, and all of them run about the same. There will be some nuanced differences between one college to another, but they're all going to be about the same. Now you'll see here from this first slide, there's really three sections it's broken into. There's pre-practice, practice, and post-practice. And this works in just about every college program out there. There's a time that you're coming early for very specific things. Then there's practice itself, which is the minimum. And then there's post-practice where you're going to engage in activities after practice to continually develop. In pre-practice, typically you're going to find that's early BP. That's when you're getting it in early. That's when the cage is open. You'll have hitting instructors in there and guys are going, getting their swings in, getting ready, prepared, going through their process to get ready for today's day at practice or inter squad or whatever it may be.
This is also a time where most guys are going to get in their SSM or MSS, whatever you want to call it. Everybody calls it something different, but that is your stability, your stretching, and your mobility. Now, in high schools, you still have a lot of team stretch kind of stuff going on there. In college, we really don't do much team stretch. That's all done in pre-practice. So there'll be guys in the cage, there'll be guys on the field, there'll be guys all over the place, and they're going to be going into mobility exercises. They're going to be going into strength and stability programs, strengthening the shoulders and stabilizing the hips and the core. And position players do it a little bit different than catchers. Like catchers, for example, we focus on a lot of hip mobility, whereas it's not quite as necessary. It's still necessary, but not quite as necessary for outfielders. This is also when those injured pitchers will be coming in, getting their treatment to get ready to go to practice to perform whatever activities are on their programming for that day. Now comes practice. The practice that Coach mentioned earlier is a lot of lengthened small group activity. And that's what's called your indie drills or your throw and catch, that kind of thing. So you get onto the field, you start your throw and catch. That's a small group activity. Then you go into your individual drills. So outfielders will be over there doing their footwork and pop throw and long throw, and infielders will be doing their glove work, and catchers are going to be doing pregame, and pitchers are over there doing their star drill or whatever it may be. And you're doing your small group fundamental activities. The second period in the middle is typically your larger group activities. That's when you're doing your team drills. So it may be fungos going to all infielders. It may be bunt defense. Maybe you're installing certain cuts and relays, or you're doing your rundowns, or your pitcher fielding practice, your PFPs. That's when we come together in period 2, typically, and start installing those programs and getting moving out of the group and a small group, applying small group fundamentals to a larger group action. On the third period is when we're engaging in more of a team-related drill, whether that be a 4-man drill, a wind drill, or just inter squad, straight inter squad, where we've gone from small group to a team drill, and now we're applying it into offense and defense. And that's when we're doing our measurement. That's when we're keeping a book on the hitters and we're keeping a chart on the pitchers and infielders, making sure that the programming that is being measured right there can then be applied forward for tomorrow or next week's programming. Post-practice, the third period. This is like pre-practice. You're on your own and you're meeting with your coaches if you want extra ground balls. Like, hey, coach, can we work on my backhand? In inter squad, I got crossed up a couple of times. Or you may want to hit a little bit and talk hitting approach, whatever that may be. That's when you're reflecting a little bit on the day and getting a little extra work in because of what happened during inter squad or small group or whatever that may be. But I want to draw your attention to that which is in red, recovery. Holy smokes, this drives me absolutely crazy. Baseball players don't condition. Let me repeat that. We don't condition. I see in high school programs all over the country conditioning way overused. We recover. It's not a cardio sport. Now, conditioning in basketball, absolutely critical. You can win the fourth quarter with a team that's better cardio, that has better cardio than the other team. Football, the same way. Baseball, we don't do that. We're not running all the time. It's quick ballistic movements that don't require a great deal of cardio. Now, the condition, I'm not saying don't run poles. That's not what I'm saying, okay? But don't overdo it. Conditioning for a baseball player has to be related directly to their recovery. I'll give you an example. Catchers. The nature of the position of a catcher, they're squatting all day long. So in college, catchers don't run poles. You won't see a catcher running poles in a good college program. Certainly in pro ball, they're not doing that. But they are going on maybe the attack bike. So they're getting some cardio in there. And the cardio is important for us to flush out the byproduct of exercise and help reoxygenate those soft tissues and muscles. Catchers will also do yoga post-practice. They'll engage in an extra stretching routine post-practice because that hip flexor, again, the nature of the position,
the catcher is like a clamshell. They sit like this all day long in the bullpen, so that hip flexor needs attention. Their glutes also need attention. Infielders a little bit different, outfielders different, and every pitcher is different. So the post-practice conditioning needs to focus on recovery. That's the key to the whole thing. Don't get caught up in running 100 poles and doing wind sprints and things. It needs to focus on recovery. Because again, our sport, not a cardio sport. We grind joints. So what we need to do is recover them. Use the link in the description to check out the full podcast I did with Coach Henry. And remember to leave your questions in the comment section so I can be sure to ask them on my second interview with him. One last thing. Be sure to check out luposbaseball.com. That's my brand new website. On that website, you will be able to check out all the resources that we have to help you take your game to the next level. I write a blog. I've got a book out. There are free courses, including an IHP course, which is an individual hitting process that'll help you take your hitting to the next level. I put a link in the description below that'll take you to luposbaseball.com, where you can check out all of those awesome resources. And maybe one day you'll make one of our highlight reels. We'll see you on the field.
You cannot feel this energy.